Hello everybody and welcome to Theology 101. Today we will talk about how God never changes. The theological term for this idea is called immutability. Immutability means that God is unchanging. He is the same in the past, present, and future. Now, why would God never change? A person can only change for the better or for the worse. Think about it like this. A person might exercise and watch what he or she eats and get healthier. Or a person might eat junk food and get unhealthier. If this person was perfect, he would not need to exercise or get healthier and change. And the fact that this person can get unhealthier through junk food shows that he is not perfect as well. If someone is perfect, he or she cannot change. Because the minute you add on or take away from this perfection, then that person is no longer perfect. The immutability of God is important to show us that God is perfect. He cannot improve himself in any way, and he cannot regress in any way. And so the God revealed in the Old Testament is the same God revealed in the New Testament. Now, I know some of us read the Bible and think that there are two different types of gods in the Old Testament versus the New Testament. We read the Old Testament, and it seems like God is this angry teenager who has rage problems and explodes. For example, we read of passages where God destroys a whole city with fire and brimstone like he did to Sodom and Gomorrah. But then when we arrive at the New Testament, it seems like God calmed down and is no longer angry. We see an example of this when Jesus' disciples want to send fire down from heaven to burn down a village for rejecting him, but Jesus stops them. So we might think that the God of the Old Testament is very different from the God of New Testament because he used to be very angry, but now it seems like he calmed down. But several passages show us that God does not change over time. We see that God is holy both in the Old Testament and the New Testament. Isaiah receives a vision of God sitting on his throne in his temple. He sees angels worshiping him, saying this, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory." The trifold repetition of holy emphasizes God's nature. But we see that God remains holy in the New Testament. When Jesus teaches his disciples to pray, do you remember how he started the Lord's Prayer? Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. The word hallowed is the word holy. God's name or character is holy, just like it was in the Old Testament. We also see that God is wrathful in the Old Testament and the New Testament. I already mentioned how God destroys Sodom and Gomorrah with fire and brimstone, but look at how the Apostle Paul describes God in the New Testament. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. Notice how the Apostle Paul says that God's wrath against ungodliness is revealed through general revelation. He says this because later he will argue that nobody has an excuse when they are judged by God because God has revealed himself through general revelation. So if it is true that God is immutable, meaning that he does not change, then what are some implications of this truth? One implication is that this means that God does not change his mind. Now, there are typically two reasons why we change our minds. First, sometimes we change our minds because we made a mistake. This is why we have regrets in life. Maybe you bought a car, but it turned out to be a lemon. And so you regret that decision and you decide to return it. You changed your mind because you made a mistake. But since God is immutable, this means that he never regrets any decision he makes because he never makes any mistakes. The prophet Samuel described God this way. "And also the glory of Israel will not lie or have regret, for he is not a man that he should have regret." There is a second reason why we might change our minds. It is when we want to break a promise. Sometimes we don't intend to break a promise, but we do so because we find a better option. For example, let's say that you promised your friends that you will have dinner with them tomorrow night. But then you get a phone call later that day telling you that you won a contest where you receive free concert tickets to watch your favorite musician. The only problem is that this concert is at the same time as the dinner you're supposed to have with your friends. So what do? Since you aren't perfect, and it seems like this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, you tell your friends that you can no longer make the dinner because now you have a better option. You break your promise and change your mind. However, God is not like us. When he makes a promise, he doesn't break it even if circumstances change. This was the case with how he related with Israel. Since he promised Abraham that he would make his descendants into a great nation, he never abandoned them or started over with a new nation, even when he was really angry. This is why God is described this way. God is not a man that he should lie, or son of man that he should change his mind? Has he said, and will he not do it? Or has he spoken, and will he not fulfill it? But this trait of God is also true of the New Testament. Notice how the writer of Hebrews describes God. So when God desired to show more convincingly to the heirs of the promise the unchangeable character of his purpose, he guaranteed it with an oath, so that by two unchangeable things, in which it is impossible for God to lie, we who have fled for refuge might have strong encouragement to hold fast to the hope set before us. Now, some people argue that there are times when God changes his mind. For example, before God sends a worldwide flood, the Bible says that God regrets that he made mankind. Another example is when God told Moses that he would destroy Israel for making a golden calf. Moses pleads with him and reminds him of the promises that he made to Abraham. Then the Bible says that God repented or changed his mind and decided to not destroy Israel anymore. So do these examples mean that God does change his mind at times? Well, we need to read these passages with the understanding that God is timeless or outside of time. But when he relates with people, he does so in real time, and his character and actions are revealed over time. So when we say that God is immutable, we are saying that his character never changes. But we are not saying how he reveals his character never changes. This means that in those instances when God changes his mind, he is revealing his unchanging character in judgment at one time, and then he is revealing his unchanging character of grace at another time. And so when we see different sides to God, it is not that he changes, it is because our relationship with him has changed. He was well pleased with his creation after he created it, but then he reveals his justice by destroying the world because of its sin. He was angry at Israel for making a golden calf, but then revealed his faithfulness to Israel by deciding not to destroy them. This means that God's immutability is not a barrier to relating to him, but it is actually the reason why we can trust in him. Because God does not change, it means that he will never push us aside for a better option. Because God does not change, it means that he will continue to love us in the future just as he has done in the past. The immutability of God should comfort us every time we feel insecure about our relationship with God, because our relationship does not depend on us because we change, but our relationship depends on God, and God never changes. If you found this video helpful, please like it and share it with a friend. In case you missed the previous video when I talked about God's integrity and how it connects with love, I'll leave a link for you to watch. Until next time, see you.